All right, so I think that wraps up topic one. So, Dim, it is now your turn. What is your topic, sir?
So, I was going back and forth in my head. I had two topics that we had discussed earlier, but I think I'm gonna hone in on the topic that I chose from actually Ree gave to me. She wanted to talk about traveling, and for me being in the military, and I've had an opportunity to travel all over the world. I've lived in Korea for a year. I lived in Tokyo for 3 years. I've traveled to Sydney on vacation. I've been to Beijing. I've climbed the Great Wall. I climbed Mount Fuji. I've been to Afghanistan. Obviously, that wasn't a great place to be, but I've had an opportunity to really experience other cultures and know how other people live, and it's very different from what we do in America. And I think that this is going to be multi-part
Mm-hmm.
of a question, but first let's figure out if you've traveled, and we can go off of that.
Gotcha. So, I have not traveled outside of the United States.
Okay.
So, I've gone down the East Coast to Florida driving. I've stopped, obviously, Florida. I have some family in the Carolinas, so I've stopped there. The rest are just driving. I've been to California numerous times,
Okay.
Texas recently, or, well, RTX, but yeah, recent. Colorado,
Austin.
and the Chicago I got stuck in, so we'll count
Okay.
that.
So, given the opportunity, do you think that you would travel?
Ooh, okay. So this is a thing Lady and I have talked about quite a bit because she wants to travel outside. Um, it's never been a thing that's been like a call to me, like, oh, I really want to do this.
Yeah.
Recently, and it's for a silly reason. Recently, I've you mentioned Tokyo. I want to go over there, but this it's silly because it's only for Disneyland, really. I just want to go to
I've
Tokyo
been to it.
Disney and check
I've
that out.
actually, speaking of Disney, like I've only been to Tokyo Disney. I haven't been to Disney in the
Oh,
States. So
okay.
it's I have a weird experience, I guess,
Okay.
with Disney parks.
Okay. Whew.
So,
Yeah, because I've been to World numerous times and I
okay.
absolutely love it. And then I've been to Land 3 times. Yeah, twice when I was living out there, and then one recently because we were out there for a wedding and just said, fuck it, let's drive down. Um, so, yeah, just obviously experiment or seeing what the differences are there and just experiencing that would be amazing. And obviously Tokyo's got like a big game culture, so I'd love to
Yep.
explore their shops. And I
It's
know
awesome.
I want to see what their fighting game community is like. Like I'm very into, well, I'm very into. I'm into the fighting game community, but I suck at fighting games. So it's like, oh, I just want to kind of see what that's like out there and see how their arcades are and stuff like
Oh,
that.
it's just what you would imagine it to be.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's if you go down to Akihabara, which is like obviously the Electric City, that's where the all the gamer stuff is, electronics. You can get computer parts. They got anime figurines. They
Hmm.
got anime manga books. Everything you can imagine from like this one little strip of Tokyo. It's just full of all that stuff.
Sweet.
But you talked about arcades, and it's just like they have multi-tier arcades. They're in like 5, 6 story buildings, and each floor will be designed to a certain type of game. So there'll be like
Okay.
a dance or a music floor, and it'll have like dance games or like the little I don't even know what to explain them, but it's like a touch music game that you
Oh
can
yeah.
play.
Okay.
And then there's floors that are designed for fighting games, and they're all set up in like rows.
Uh huh.
And then on the other row, on like across from you, is the person you're fighting. So
Yeah, the
you can't
cabinet.
you can't look at them,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yep.
they're looking at like they're playing right in front of you. It's nuts.
Awesome. So yeah, that would be my biggest like interest. So like I said, there hasn't been like I need to do this, but there's been a couple places like oh that would be neat.
Yeah.
Tokyo being one, and then kind of South Korea, just because of the Taekwondo background, would just be like interested to see what that's like.
Yep.
Um,
Very similar
but
to
yeah,
Tokyo.
yeah.
Well, going into like Seoul and the bigger cities of South Korea, they're very similar to Japan.
Mm,
Um, not a lot of technical differences to both areas, but I mean, obviously, Korea is a lot smaller. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are the only ones that have caused interest, but yeah.
I think with that, then I mentioned this earlier, but do you think that people, not just in America, but everywhere in the world, should go out of their comfort zone and go to other countries?
I mean, I feel I have to say yes.
You don't have
no,
to.
I
It's all
know,
opinion.
yeah. I think they should, but I'm struggling as to be like, you should do this because this. Like, okay, I think you should just to similar to there's a phrase, shoes. Person
Oh,
shoes.
walk in
Yeah,
my
well,
shoes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Just to kind of like, yeah, get that view of it. Because, yeah, it's so
Yeah.
easy to just be over here and be like,
Right.
oh, everything's blah over there, or everything's great, or whatever. I think I talked about it on
Just
the
because
kind
shoes.
of the Game Over Greggy show when I was on there. I
Yeah.
mean, we were talking about gun violence, or it kind of went gun violence, but
Yeah, you
the-
guys went into some serious topics.
yeah, I was like, I'm just here, okay. But it started off. The topic was originally, would you leave the America to live somewhere else?
okay,
and I think
so very similar.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned, I was like, well, it's always easy to just be like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side, kind of thing. So like, it's hard to say yes or no to, I guess, if moving wise purpose. For visiting, I think, yeah, it would be, I think it should, yes, at least one place. I'm not saying you got to bounce over
Oh
everywhere.
yeah, definitely.
And yeah, it's got its challenges. I know a friend of mine recently, like maybe past couple months, he went to France by himself.
Okay.
And I was like,
Wow.
whoa, shit, okay. Like, to me, that blew my mind because he was only packing like a backpack also. I was like, dude, you're
Wow.
nuts. I can't do that.
That's impressive though.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool.
And I mean, he loved it. He had a blast going over there. So, I mean, obviously, it can be a positive experience, as I can see. So, yeah, I think so. Like I said, just to kind of put yourself out there.
So, well, going back to the benefits of traveling, do
Mhm.
you think that do you feel like it's important to understand a culture from a different country?
Yes. And that I think that's my biggest like hang up of why to travel. Just like me going there, like not obviously being out of my element. Like
Right.
I want to be respectful to
Mhm.
the people there because obviously it's their home. I can't just be like, "Bah! Okay, hello, I'm here now."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like adjusting to everything and making sure I'm doing things proper or using proper phrases or whatever it is, like that's my biggest hang up. And for sure, I mean like I don't care your culture, creed, religion, whatever. Like as long as you're a nice person, you're treating people how they want to be treated and you're not hurting anybody, you do
Mhm.
you. So like I have no hangups there. Like, oh, I'm not gonna go there because they believe XYZ or
Yep.
whatever. So yeah, absolutely. I think we should respect other people's cultures and stuff like that. And I think that's important that people have them.
I think in reference to traveling outside of the country, I think that a lot of people get hung up with the money.
Mm,
I think that a lot of people aren't willing or able to spend money on a 2 day or a 3 day trip to somewhere that they're unfamiliar with. And on top of that, I think there's a compound uh, terror with potentially not knowing their language or the
Yeah.
language barrier, right? You're not. I think it's easy to travel from like here to somewhere like England or Australia,
right.
where they speak a variant of what we already know. I traveled to Bali on my own, Indonesia, but a lot of them spoke English, and I traveled to Sydney on my own, just on vacation, and obviously they all spoke English as well. But even when you think that they speak like, or you think you could understand them, it's still difficult because you're not used to that dialect.
Right.
And I remember just walking around and try to get trains and stuff, and it's just like you feel that slight tension every time you go somewhere. And I think maybe if I would have been with somebody, it's always a little bit easier if you have like an extra body. So do you
Yeah.
think that if you were able to travel outside of the country that you could do it on your own, or do you think you would have to go with somebody else?
Ooh, okay.
I'm asking all the toughies today.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. This is good. I think I would definitely go with someone. I don't think I could do it on my own. In a way, like I could for sure, but like I wouldn't like it for a while. See, the thing about me is I like to plan everything in a
Me
way.
too.
So if I was going by myself, I would have to have like everything listed out. Okay, I'm going here for sure. Then I'm doing this. Then I'm doing that. Like, I don't know. I sometimes do a very poor job of just like live in the moment kind of stuff where
Yeah,
you
for
go
sure.
out and just whatever happens, happens. So I
Yep.
feel because everything would be so out of my element just because everything's brand new. Yeah, that would freak me out by myself. So I think I would have to go with someone else.
I mean, that's very similar to me, and I mean, you can ask Ree. Like, I literally have to plan everything to the T, and if a plan doesn't go correctly,
Mhm.
I start freaking out, and it's just like it's like an inherent stressor when I know that something may not go the way I planned it to, even if it's like the day of something, and let's say we can't make a bus tour or something. Like, I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like now we don't have 2 hours to spend on this. I gotta go figure out how we're supposed to get around now. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I really like, and that's really important, I think, to when you're, if you ever travel by yourself, is having something to planned out, at least even having backup plans to when you're going and doing something, because you never know if it's gonna rain that day,
Right.
or if you're gonna need, I don't know, something, or a car, or whatever, an Uber or something like that. You got to figure out all these side stories, and as long as you have a plan, I think that traveling by yourself is totally doable.
For sure. So I'll flip a question on you then, because you just
Okay.
listed off a bunch of places which I had no idea you'd been to. Did you
Yep.
have a favorite place that you went to, visited, whether it was
Uh,
work or vacation?
yeah. I mean, I think that it's the easy answer is Tokyo, right?
Okay.
Being a gamer, having nerd culture is like, I've grown up with this stuff my whole life. Um, Going to Tokyo was like a dream of mine since I was young, and for the for the military to actually want to send me to the place that I wanted to go, like
Hmm.
that never happens.
Right.
And a lot of the times, like our base selection is randomized. Like, we'll be at a base and not even know where we're going until like 3 months before we're supposed to leave.
Hmm.
It's just like, all right, now you got orders, you got to go to this place. But I knew that I was going to go there after I went to Korea. Um, and I was ecstatic, and that's part of the reason why I re-enlisted the first time, because they had told me I got orders to Korea, but then I now you get to pick a new place and go to Japan. So
Very
uh
cool.
yeah, I mean, Tokyo is definitely at the top of my list for obvious reasons.
Hmm.
Everything I love is basically out of there, but a close second is Sydney.
Okay.
Um, both cities are extremely clean, very very nice people. Sydney has the fittest community I've ever seen. Like, there's a gym on like every corner of every street. It seemed like, just overall, my experiences in both places were incredible. Like, and both cities have something to do at all hours of the day. You could be in an arcade for 8 hours. You could be going to a famous landmark, or listening to history, or going to museums or temples, or like literally anything you could think of is in both of those cities. And for those reasons, I think that those would be at the top of my list.
Nice. Had something. Oh, okay. Kind of similar question, but opposite side of the spectrum. Have you ever gotten stuck anywhere?
Stuck how?
So my friend is in the Navy and did that, and he was stationed over in Australia for a while.
Wow,
And there
lucky him.
was so there was some political hubbub. So he ended up getting stuck there an extra 3 months. So he was supposed to be back home in June, and then get home until September because of that. So any experiences like that you were maybe stuck in a place for a while?
I think the only place that I've been stuck, like technically, is when I went to my deployment in Afghanistan, they had us fly into, basically, you're supposed to fly into like a hub country, which
Mm-hmm.
is usually a safer country where we have bases that will charter people to the harsher areas. So all throughout the Middle East, there's places. The United Arab Emirates is one, and a couple other places. But for me, my first place was this place called Minas, which is in Russia,
Okay.
and it's like I flew into a blizzard, and there like I had to wait just a short week in this place, just waiting for my flight to get to Afghanistan, and I think that's probably the only time I've ever been really stuck, but it wasn't even that long. So
Mm. Okay.
yeah, but I mean, oh, I wouldn't say I was stuck, but I did get scared when I was coming back from Sydney. I had to fly through Shanghai, and they told me that my flight was delayed till the next day, so I had to stay a day. And I just took a random bus to some like sketchy hotel.
Mm.
The hotel had like cracks in the wall, and it was just like really dirty and dingy, and I was like, I don't know if this is gonna get me back to my place, but I had no choice, so I had to stay there.
Right.
And it was just a day, but like, I mean, a day in a country that you don't know anything, you don't know anybody, you don't have like your regular phones and stuff. Yeah, it's just, it was a super scary experience too.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to Bali, I ended up losing my debit card because I had left it in a machine. I was freaking out. I like call my parents and wire money through Western Union
Mm-hmm.
just to have enough money to make it through the rest of my trip. So
Yay.
yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that that you learn from though, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's all a part of the experience. And then obviously, if you go with somebody, then um, it's a lot easier to manage.
Right.
There's always somebody that you always feel that comfort of having a friend or multiple friends that you're with. And I totally think that I wish like traveling would be mandatory, even if it was just for a day or two to get out of the country, even if it was to go to Mexico or Canada, like even simply crossing either one of our borders, I think would be beneficial to anybody, just to see somebody else's culture, because we're so culturally like saturated by all these different cultures in our country that we think it's the same when we leave, and it's not.
Right.
And I think it's important that even if we went to England, that they live completely different. Like they
Yeah.
have a queen. We don't have that. Like it's just, I think it's very beneficial to see that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned how they're so similar with the language barrier. Like,
Yep.
everybody would think, oh, yeah, that's going to be the most similar. But, yeah, like you mentioned, it's got their differences. So that would even be like, oh, ooh, okay, my bad.
Yep. Even like the friends that I have in the Kind of Funny community that are from England, like they have slang sometimes, and you'll be like, what did you say? And oh yeah, you guys don't have that slang. Or they'll be like, what does this and this mean
Mhm.
in English, like, or American? And it's just like, oh yeah, you guys don't know about that. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's very interesting.
Going off that point, like, I've never really actually sat down and thought about it. It just, like, light bulb moment in my head when you mentioned that. Like, when people came over for Kind of Funny Live or prom, like,
Hmm.
how, like, just knowing, like, what did they feel? Like, what did
Yeah,
they notice?
exactly.
Like, whoa, all right.
It's interesting, and also eye-opening, because you don't this isn't something we normally think about. We don't wake up thinking, okay, how does an English person react to this situation? Like their whole upbringing and the way that they do things is just different,
Hmm.
from the breakfast that they eat to how their day is planned to what they can do throughout the day. Like it's very interesting to me, and I think that I that's one of the things that I cherish about having my Air Force career, and ending it the way I did, because I've gotten a chance to go to a lot of places. I've seen a lot of cultures, um, and I wouldn't trade that. Even as harsh as some of the times that I've had to experience were, I would never trade it, and I would do it again. So
All right. I think I got one more question, then I'm all burnt out. But long flights, how do you deal with those? Because that's another thing I'd worry about.
Oh man, I had to fly from Tokyo the long way. So
Oh geez.
so I went from Tokyo to Afghanistan, but I flew the opposite direction. So I had to go through the States, through Europe, through
What the?
Russia, and then down to Afghanistan. So
Okay.
that was basically I think 2.5 days of just flying.
Uh-huh.
So in order to deal with that, I think if you're going on a long plane ride, if you can if you can get into a higher or better chair, then that's always a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of those chairs recline if you're going overseas. Uh, if not, then I would recommend taking some melatonin or taking a sleep aid and trying to sleep most of the way, but you're not going to be able to do it because like 8 to 10 hours, you're going to wake up eventually.
Right.
So have something like a Switch or most of those long distance flights have TVs on them. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a bunch of movies and stuff you can watch, or maybe if you're going with a group of people to play like some kind of card games or something to keep each other occupied.
No, yeah. Yeah, that's another big worry. I mean, mine. Usually I knock out on flights, but I'm like, I don't know.
I think
That's
it's almost instant for me, and I don't always need sleep aid because like it's something about the bumpy motion that I'm just like, I gotta go to sleep. I know Rita's the same thing. She'll sleep like sitting on the couch right here. Like she's the quickest sleeper I've ever seen.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that's all I got for